Hey, my people. It's your girl, Dr. Joy Chestnut, coming in and checking in. Today is Tuesday. I'm going to call it Thankful Tuesday because I'm just feeling so thankful today. I woke up feeling thankful, just thanking God that, I'm living, I'm breathing, and just thanking God for all my limbs, my mind being in the right state, my emotional state being well. So yes, I'm going to call it Thankful Tuesday. I'm out having lunch, so as you can see, I'm in a parking lot of a shopping mall in my area. And I came out to have lunch because I'm back to work now full time, which I'm really happy about. And I'm working from home. So every day after I get a little work in, I do try to come out for lunchtime to get some vitamin D, just to walk a little bit and just to, clear my mind. Today I went around and walked a little bit and did a little window shopping and Bath and Body Works, just to, retail therapy. But I'm blessed that I'm able to go back to work and I'm able to work from home. I tell you, God always puts a ram in the bush. He just always puts a ram in the bush. So I want to talk a little bit today about healing, and I'm just going to do 15 minutes because this is a faith walk and a testimony for me today. Because I went to see my doctor the other day, and I'm at the place now where I'm seeing them every 2 weeks when I first got the transplant, and I'm just following up from my last video that I did that was 30 minutes, and I'm following up with that because since I had that transplant, I'm telling you, it's just a new revelation. I feel so differently about so many different things about myself, about the people in my circle, and in a positive way. But I did have an experience that was such a negative experience, just with the transplant and everything. I really hadn't known what to expect. But I just want to talk about what it's like to heal. What healing really means, not just from a perspective of me physically healing, because of course that's happening to me. I'm able to walk on my own now and do a lot of things I really wasn't able to do. I thank God, I have to say it over and over again, for my husband, because he was truly instrumental and just helping me get through this. My daughters, some of them just reaching out to me emotionally and checking on me every day and making sure that I was well and I was okay and just showing me that concern. But just really my husband was in the cut with me. He was really in the trenches with me. And I have a newfound love and respect for that man. I really do. Regardless of what we ever go through, I will never forget what he did for me. And he always says, when I talk to him about it, he's quick to say, that's my job. I'm your husband. That's what I'm supposed to do. But we all know that people don't always do what they're supposed to do, right? We know wives that don't act like wives. We know mothers that don't act like mothers. We know fathers that don't act like fathers, and husbands that don't act like husbands. So people know what they're supposed to do. It doesn't mean they always do it. So I honor him for doing that. But I want to talk a little bit about my healing, because the first month or 6 weeks of me going to the doctor's appointments for follow-ups, it was weekly, and sometimes a lot of times in that first month, twice a week. And I couldn't drive. I could barely get up out of the bed by myself. It was too hard. The incision was so large. It was so much pain that my husband took me to all these appointments. And when my daughter came down, she took me. So I remember the first, maybe after 6 to 7 weeks, and I was able to go to the doctor by myself. I was kind of scared. Emotionally, I was still messed up. Like, I'm feeling fear. And then mentally, just not trusting myself and doubting myself. But I said, I'm going to do it. I had the courage, and the courage comes from that faith in God. Like, God, you're going to get me through this. And it was hard, a long road walking from the car to the check-in desk and then getting to the clinic. And they noticed right away. They said, Miss Chestnut, you're not here with your husband today. I said, no, this is my first appointment being by myself, so that was the experience first. And then now we're 2 months going on the third month, and I went into the clinic the other day and I watched myself as I got out of the car. I didn't think about it until I got to press the button, and I thought about it. Look, I didn't even give a second thought to walking from that car. When I first did it, I got out of the car and I got out slow and I walked slow, and I was like, if I need a wheelchair, who am I going to ask? And I gave so much thought to it. But I noticed the other day when I went to my appointment, I hadn't even gotten any thought. Before I know, I was pressing the button and asking another man and woman a man was in a wheelchair and a woman was pushing him. Oh, do you know where you're going? Do you need help? I was healed enough to help somebody else. You hear me? Y'all hear that, right? Me, who needed healing, who was suffering just weeks before, I was able to help someone else, and I hadn't even given it any thought. I hadn't realized how far I come. I just jumped out my car without thinking about it, grabbed my purse, and I was at the elevator. And that's how healing happens. That's how healing happens in the physical. You ever get a cut? You have a finger cut, And every time you put your hand in a bag of chips, it burns. Or every time you pick up something salty, it burns. And you're like, oh, it's a little cut, but it reminds you that it's there. Every time you do something, you remember that cut is there. But then all of a sudden you go to eat something, or you go to pick something up salty, or you stick your hand in something and you realize, oh shoot, it healed right before me. And the body is designed to do that. Oh, God is awesome. That is a testimony in itself. The body is designed to do what it's called to do. We really need the medication and the help of doctors from surgeries and injuries. But when it comes to internal healing, you can allow the body to do what God designed it to do, because it can do all that God designed it to do if you just let it. And so I was more healed than I thought. Then when I got in the clinic, my first appointment, I told you, they were like, where's your husband? We're so used to seeing him with you. But now, because I've been going on my own, they were like, oh, you look so good. We're so happy to see you. Hey, Miss Chestnut. And it's just more regular now. And I'm getting back to myself. Of course, I'm still in that phase of recovery because I'm back to work. But again, I'm just virtual, right? Because I still have some things that could be better before I start jumping back into going into the clinics. But I just wanted to say, healing takes place before you know it, if you allow your body to do what it's supposed to do. But also, I want to talk about emotional and mental healing, because mentally my head was in a space where I'm a woman of great faith. I really am. And I help other people to come to realization of their faith and how God can help them, and also being resilient through different trials and tribulations they go through triumphs, through trauma and different things they go through. I'm one of those people who helps people get through those things. And here I was not really knowing how to help myself. So, the doctor said to me, I'm just so glad. She stayed with me for an hour. And I was like, you need to get out of here, because we're in here for almost an hour. She was like, no, Miss Chestnut, I just love talking to you. It's really personally, I love talking to you, because I was talking to her about my healing. And she made a statement, and she said, I can see now that you're not feeling hopeless, because you seemed hopeless before. And I had to correct her, and I said, no, I was never feeling hopeless, but I was feeling helpless. Because hopeless meant that there was no way for me to be out. There was no way out for me, that I would never have a hope for the future of this thing doing what it's supposed to do. And guess what? Because of my faith, I can never be hopeless, because there was a time when even I thought I wouldn't make it. I thought I would succumb to this illness because I was having complications and getting infections and different stuff like that. And even in my time of thinking that I would succumb to the illness, I still knew that healing can also be on the other side. Y'all hear me? Some people are healed and they're home with God. To be absent in the body means you're present with the Father. And that's still healing. And I remember when my friend died last summer from colon cancer, her dying wish was for me to speak at her funeral. And her family called me and they said she didn't want anything else. She just wanted you to speak at her funeral. And my husband and I had a lot of business going forward that I really needed to attend to, but it wasn't more important for me being there for my friend with her dying wish. And so my husband took care of some stuff on this end, and I actually left to speak at her funeral. And one of the things I spoke to them was that I don't want you to think because she's gone, she wasn't healed. Because you know why? She was healed and whole in her spirit. She was healed emotionally. She wanted to live because she had kids and she wanted to live. But because she was so connected to Christ, she was healed. And healing sometimes means being on the other side. It doesn't mean that when you talk of death, you're being so negative. You really understand that when God uses you, sometimes he might even use you and bring you home with him. Because someone's life might change dramatically because you're gone. Someone might do something they've never went forward to do because of your loss. So the tragedy of your death can be a triumph for someone else. So I understood clearly that God could use me like that. And I really worried about my husband. When I spoke to God about, if you're going to take me home and you're going to use this to bring me home with you, two things I asked: don't let me suffer, and send support for my husband, because I love my husband. I know he would suffer. We're close. We've grown really close. We have a strong relationship and a partnership, and I just wanted God to see about him. My children, I knew they'd find their parents and they would make their way, but it was really my husband that was on my mind more than myself. I didn't want to be in pain, and I wanted to suffer, and I wanted him to be okay. So I spoke that to the doctor, and I said I was never hopeless. I was just feeling helpless, to not be able to walk myself, to not be able to drive myself, to not be able to cook for myself, to not even be able to make it to the bathroom. But she said, you look so much better, and healing is a process, and I see that process in you. And yes, that process is in me. And even for hurt, because I spoke about being hurt and disappointed in things that happen as far as me with relationships, people that I expected to be there for me, or people that when I needed love and attention, they gave me distance instead. While I was healing and I needed just love, they gave me distance. And in the beginning of that, I went through, as I mentioned in the other video, some stages of grief. Like I was hurt at first. I cried, and I was in disbelief of that. And lots of different people, and people that I didn't expect to be there were there. But that's how God operates. And so I went through those stages of grief, of being sad from it, and then I went from that to really being angry and bitter about it. But I can even look back now, and the reason why you're healed from things and people that have hurt you emotionally is because now I look upon it with compassion. Some of those things I look upon and I say, maybe they just couldn't. Maybe they just wouldn't. Whatever the case is, it really doesn't matter why it didn't happen now. The fact is, God has healed me and brought me to the other side of it. Emotionally, I don't think of it the same anymore. Now, that's not to say if someone has hurt you, especially if they hurt you intentionally, and you know that they hurt you intentionally, or what they did caused a damage to your life or your emotions in a way that is, you can't turn back from it, then you can still heal in yourself and think of it from a place of compassion. That's not to say if you talk about it from a place of compassion and understanding, love and wisdom, because when you heal from things people have done to you, you do get wisdom from it. Once you heal, you get a different kind of wisdom. You're able to walk in love, and that love is just having compassion. Even if you don't agree with the reasons why, even if you don't understand the reasons why, you're still able to have compassion for that situation. And that's when you're healed. But that's not to say that you still have to go back to the same relationship with them. You don't have to enter back into the same relationship with them. You can still love them and have compassion and walk in love and be healed for what happened, and that relationship change. It doesn't have to change for a negative reason. It can just change so that you can grow and maybe they can too. You don't have to stop talking to them or be angry anymore. You can grow. And I saw myself grow in this thing physically, from my wounds and from the illness itself, or just getting the kidney and going through that process, from my emotional battles, my mental battles, and even my spiritual battles, because I tell you, I did walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That prayer will never be the same to me. I want y'all to know, I went in the valley to get this kidney. Do y'all hear me? Somebody got to understand that. I went in the valley. When the Lord say you'll walk through the valley of shadow of death and fear no evil, let me tell you, when I was in that valley, I told y'all before, the Lord came in my dreams and healed me. In my dreams, I faced the angel of death in my dreams, and I came through that. Sometimes something you want that's going to have a great value, like having a kidney and putting more years on my life and getting it without ever getting on dialysis, and God standing by his word that I decreed and declared for 20 years that he would never, ever let me see a dialysis center, and he kept that word and watched over it and seen that it was performed and it didn't come back void. He showed up for his girl. But when he showed up, he said, you're going to go in the valley to get this, because I'm going to make sure that you know it's not you. I'm going to make sure you know it's not y'all ain't hearing me. I'm going to make sure you know that it's not you. You're not that smart. You're not that smart. You're not that savvy. Any diet you could go on, that didn't do it. The doctors have skills, but it's limited. I did this. And you're going to know, because I'm going to send you in the valley to get it. But guess what the good thing about going in the valley and getting something, y'all? What's the opposite of the valley? Yep, the mountaintop. So this testimony is going to be big. I don't even know how to explain it. But since this business ventures that I was waiting to happen are now coming around, different things that I had endeavors to do are now coming around, because God's going to create a platform for me to share this testimony. And that's how you share it on the mountaintop. You give God the glory. You use your story for God's glory, to pull souls out of the fire, y'all. Listen, to help people who wasn't in church, or not church, but who didn't have a relationship with God before, to have one now, to make people curious about who God is, to make them want to taste and see that the Lord is good. Oh my God, that his mercy endures forever. So I'm at the mountaintop place now where I can use my story to glorify God. But I have you know, I went in the valley for that kidney. I had a sacrifice. Some relationships were changed and sacrificed during that time, but they needed to be sacrificed. God let me come out unscathed. I was in the fire and I have no signs of scorching or burning. And that's what he can do for you. So I'm here today to just say, keep your faith. Keep your faith and know that healing is possible. Anything that you're going through, whether it be mental, emotional, or any form or fashion, God can bring you out because he brought me out. And if he did it for me, he can do it for you. That's my 15 minutes of faith for today. And I just want to say, you guys, keep the faith. And how do you keep that? When you don't know how to keep your faith, you close your eyes and you say, God, I don't know what to do. When you're feeling fear, and the Bible always, people always quote the scripture saying that we shouldn't have a spirit of fear. Well, guess what we do? We're living in our human body. And even if you have the most faith in the world, you still have the spirit of fear. And the word says he didn't give us a spirit of fear. He gave us a sound mind of love. So how do you get to that sound mind and love? Guess what? You go praise God. Worship God, talk to God. And when you start praising him and worship him, you'll experience that love all over again. And that love will cast out that fear. Y'all hear me? That love will cast out that fear. Because usually when someone's angry over something, they're either fearful or hurt. So when you feel any of that stuff, just go to God and start praising him and watch that love cast out fear. Again, that's my 15 minutes. Y'all be good.